Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about some ideas that are ping-ponging around the web that I've seen about how to encourage and facilitate the return of unwanted third world peasant immigrants and illegal immigrants who've arrived in the West under the to be refugees or people otherwise that were moved to the West by the large infrastructure controlled by the globalists and the United Nations and the NGOs, because they're not legitimate migrants, far from it. So they're part of what you would say a people trafficking organisation or people trafficking infrastructure. And I think they should be returned. They didn't make a conscious decision to come to the West to improve their lives and deciding I want to go to the West because it's rich, so I can parasite off their welfare system. That's hardly a reason for migration. So I just want to have a look at one of the suggestions that has been made is that third world governments who receive masses of foreign aid, that foreign aid should be tied to accepting the repatriation of those migrants who came from the homeland. So it could be Ethiopia or I don't know, Sudan or anywhere. Pakistan, India should accept return of these people, return of these migrants that aren't fitting in. They're not doing anything. They're not useful in any way. They're not adding value to the economy or the society. Should accept return of these mass migrants who are illegitimate migrants in every sense of the word. They should accept return of them, and if they don't, then they don't get any foreign aid. So the foreign aid should be tied to the mass repatriation of all these immigrants. Now, I just want to sort of talk a bit about immigration generally to the West. There's been a mass flood of immigration facilitated and demanded and inflicted on us by the globalists. Nobody wanted it. Nobody asked for it. Nobody voted for it. So it's been forced upon us without our consent. And the thing about a democratic government is the government's supposed to act with the consent of the people, but they didn't. They just forced it, which shows that the consent is now being dismissed as some archaic process from years ago or ages ago. And today it's your moral superiors force you to accept multiculturalism because it's supposed to be good for you or something like that. But none of the emigration, as I see it, is legitimate. Now, a legitimate immigrant looks at their possibilities and where they are, and they say, well, gee, that's a good job over there. This country is spending a lot of money on nuclear research, and I'm a nuclear physicist, so I'll apply for a job in that country, and hopefully my skills are required or in demand or needed. And then I'll get a better job and a better salary and better opportunities for my kids and so on. So you would make a conscious decision that's social and economic, but your purpose of going there is to integrate, to immediately walk into a situation where you're adding value, delivering value, and contributing to well, in this case, you're an employer, but contributing financially and socially. You want to fit in as quickly as you can and become part of the social fabric of that country that you're going to. Now that's an immigrant making that choice. There are some, if you look back hundreds of years ago, there are people that may leave difficult situations, but they'll choose countries to go to that are tick a lot of the boxes. For example, I speak English. That country is the national language there is English. They're Christians. I'm a Christian. They have certain lifestyles and certain sort of cultural norms. I have those same cultural norms. So you would select a country that will accept you, but importantly, where you tick a lot of the boxes, where you have a good chance of integrating fairly quickly, getting a job, all this sort of stuff. Now, it may not be a perfect fit, but you would want to go an area where the fit was the greatest, rather than the fit was the least. What we're seeing with immigration today, and certainly over the last 25, 35 years, is particularly where the globalists got involved in ginning it all up, is that people are being moved into places where they're utterly incompatible. They've got no intention of integrating. They've got no intention of adding value, of walking off the plane or the boat or whatever, and contribute. None whatsoever. Quite the opposite. They have nothing in common with the place, the people there. They don't speak the language. They have no concept of laws. They have no concept of lifestyle. They hate Christianity. They hate white people. They hate white people's customs and habits and ways of life, and yet they choose to go to a white country, supposedly. So, the type of immigration we're seeing and who goes where, that's changed completely. Now, some get to America during the time of the Italian Civil War and the Wars of Unification in, say, the 1870s and so on. Well, what about them? Well, no. You see, I think they did tick a lot, not all, but they did tick a lot of boxes. They're Christian. They did want to integrate. They did materially want to improve themselves by working and producing things and opportunities for their children. They wanted their children to become Americans, good Americans. So that's a very different thing. They weren't going to a country where I despise your religion, I despise you, I despise everything about you, but I'll come to your country. No, that wasn't how. But that's what we see today. The mass movement of people is to the West. The majority of these people, I'd say close to all of them, despise the West. Sure, they'll take what they can get, but they despise the West. They despise white people. They despise the West. They despise white people. They despise Christianity, and so on. And so this is again the huge difference between today and back in the time. And if you look at the geopolitical stresses, civil wars and famines around the world, and overpopulation issues, these sorts of things, they are from areas that are utterly and totally, Sudan, Pakistan, are utterly incompatible with the West and with Western ways of life, Christianity, and so on and so forth. So, very different sort of immigrant. Now, the second level of illegitimacy is that these immigrants aren't natural organic immigrants. Far from it. For two things. Firstly, there's a vast infrastructure machine for moving people around, illegally or not. There's a vast infrastructure machine funded by NGOs, the United Nations, various globalist-controlled activist groups. These people who are immigrants, illegal or not, would never have undertaken or even thought of undertaking this journey without multiple layers of assistance, including agitators that go straight into the rural mud hut village and stir these people up and get them to make the journey, and then facilitating all the transport. But they would never do this, never dream of it. And this idea that some African mud hut peasant will just suddenly up one day, you know what, I'm going to go to London. That's bullshit. The guy's literate his own language. He's never been more than a few miles out of his village ever in his life, but suddenly he decides to make a journey of many thousands of miles. Just naturally and organically decides, of course, no, that's bullshit. So the illegitimacy is that the vast infrastructure, agitators, stirrers, people running around mind fucking as many people as they can, folks as they can in the villages, or even going around to refugee camps and doing the same sort of thing. If there's any refugees that are legitimate, and I think it's a tiny proportion of the total, any refugees that are legitimate, then there is a consideration for that. But it still has to. You have to integrate and assimilate. You have to bring something to the table. Maybe it's skills, maybe it's work experience or something. Because if you don't do that, then they bring nothing to the table, and they're instantly go on welfare, and then it's intergenerational welfare, which we see today in Australia and elsewhere around the West. So they're not legitimate immigrants in any sense of the natural or organic sense of the word. So now the third layer is of illegitimacy is the amount of money that's spent on bribing and funding and subsidising people smugglers, but also subsidising governments. So as in bribing third world governments. So if you want to say, look, we want to go into your villages and stir up and agitate the peasants to come to the West. So the local warlord or goon, because they're all fucking corrupt as fuck in those places, demands a nice big payout. So yeah, well, if you give me $100,000 I'll let you do it, or $1 million or whatever. And then these bribes are paid. So multiple bribes, all levels are paid to government officials, not only the areas where they're sourcing these migrants from, but these are illegitimate migrants from, but all the countries and places they move through. All these bribes are being paid to all these goons and heavies and thugs by the fucking UN and the NGOs and so on, so that they can move these people through. So nothing about this mass migration, nothing at all about it is legitimate. Again, if you look at the amount of people that come from India, say, to Australia, because that's a primary source of, because it's in the region, primary source of migrants. When the Indians first started arriving in numbers, they couldn't get jobs. You could barely understand what they were saying. They had no recognised qualifications. They all had, whatever qualifications they had were from corrupt universities where the family just bribed the the lecturer to get the piece of paper, the PhD. And I hired these Indians first, when they were first coming in, as I was hiring them, and realised that all of them had fucking fake degrees. None of them could do the work they claimed they could do. So I had the qualifications they claimed they had, and I ended up, I think, getting rid of every single one that was hired, and that was an attitude that was held universally. But then they brought in quotas and affirmative action and political correctness. As soon as the Australian government brought that in, then you saw Indians and vast numbers of Indians being hired in the public service and so on. But on a purely meritorious basis, none of them would have got these jobs, or a tiny proportion. So now there are entire government departments in the public service where there's only Indians working there. And whether it be a local government, federal or state government, it's insane. But this is the artificial nature of mass migration. Jobs had to be made and created for these people because they're incapable of getting jobs on their own, by their own qualifications and work experience and merit. Again, in a lot of places in India for jobs, the job comes up, you can get anywhere between 1,000 and 3,000 people applying for the job. That's how much big their population is and how few jobs their basket case economy is capable of generating. I like the way they can send rockets to the moon today while nearly a billion people are in relative poverty. That's insane. But anyway, this is if foreign aid was tied to repatriating these people. Now, I don't know how it would work, and we need to put foreign aid in perspective. Some people think foreign aid is, we gave $10 million or $100 million or whatever to country X, and the vision people have is that there's $100 million US dollars in a suitcase, and someone drops it in. That money is then spent on building a road or building, I don't know, an airport or something like that. Something useful and value adding to a bridge. To the populace, but typically vast amounts of it are taken by the corrupt goons that are running the place. Then there's a lot of money is filtered through various consultancies and so on, which are the goon flunky stooge mates of whatever government's giving the money. Then you get money allocated and gifted to various NGOs to go around and supposedly do good work. That goes on to buying their brand new air-conditioned Mercedes 4-wheel drives and then their hotel bills and this sort of thing. Because they're white in the United Nations, they have to pay 10 times the rate for a hotel, and then that money is soaked up. So the amount of money that actually gets to the supposed peasants or those who are doing it tough is very small. So there's micro improvement, if you like, minuscule levels of improvement to the local economy and infrastructure and facilities, because that money is there are so many people corrupt people with their hands in the honeypot that hardly any of it gets through to where it's meant to go. Some of it does, but even where you see shipments, where ships arrive of, say, grain, for example, grain from, I don't know, the United States, Canada, Australia, wherever, and the grain arrives. That surplus grain that they can't sell in the world market, it would have been dumped anyway. So they really just transferring that loss to the third world country and saying, well, look, we're giving you $20 million worth of grain, and that's foreign aid. Not that the grain is appreciated, not that it can't be consumed by the locals, it can. So, but when it arrives, the internal infrastructure for storage and warehousing, transport, distribution is usually well below par. A lot of that's going to spoil before it gets anywhere near where it's meant to get to feed the hungry. On top of that, warlords and goons and heavies and corrupt government officials will grab as much as they can, then sell it on the black market at inflated prices and so on. So when it comes to foreign aid, really we're talking about a small group of corrupt goons at the top are really raking in the big bucks on this through again all sorts of corrupt means. So foreign aid said, well, you guys aren't going to get a penny from us in terms of foreign aid. This is the first world countries, unless you agree to take back all these unwanted immigrants who haven't come to the West to add value or contribute or do anything. They've only come to parasite. And even if they haven't come directly to parasite, we have to turn our economy into this sort of socialist dystopia just to create artificial jobs for them they would otherwise, never have a chance of getting, this sort of thing. So I think the majority of immigrants have come, whether it be from India or not all, so some will be adding value and good value too. But India, China, Pakistan, all those sort of places, Africa, they should, unless they have integrated and assimilated, unless they did bring skills and capabilities, they should all be repatriated. And should the withholding of foreign aid be a method of inducing governments to take them back. You've been with Tassus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.